Hello, friends. I'm Maggie Ostara, and I'm a sovereignty mentor and a human design expert. And I like to share the human design perspective on what's happening astrologically. Astrology is a part of human design, but human design has its own view of what's going on with our cosmic weather. And today I want to share with you about the shift of the nodes of the moon that are happening in the human design system because they're changing gates. They're not changing astrological signs yet. That'll happen in the summer in July. But for right now, they're moving gates inside of the human design system. And it's actually a very interesting shift that helps us get a sense of sort of the larger perspective, like 100 years perspective of what's going on right now and how it relates to the prophecy of 2027. So let's go ahead and explore together. The nodes of the moon are where the orbit of the moon crosses the orbit of the Earth. And they have a lot to do with sort of our big soul expression and trajectory over the course of our lives. Generally, the way that this is understood is the south node is what we brought in with us. It's considered our karma. A lot of times it's skills or perspectives or ways of looking at the world that we developed in other lives that are now familiar and available to us. And sometimes there are things that need to be healed around those things that we brought in, and that we're going to be evolving out of or through and out of as we move towards the north node, which is considered our destiny. It's the place that we're moving toward. And so it's new. It's unfamiliar. A lot of times we might have some kind of resistance to it. We're like, I'm not so sure. That's not something that I really relate to. I know for me in my nodal two nodes, I've really worked with that a lot because I was very, very familiar with and comfortable with the energy of my south node. It also did that my sun was also there. They were conjunct. So that had something to do with it as well. But getting to know the other side, right, the north node, which is all the way on the other side of the human design mandala or all the way on the other side of the astrological wheel. And so it's opposite. It's quite different. And so for me, really learning how to step into that and embrace it and express it has been quite a journey for me. Generally, we think about us moving in our own lives from the south node to the north node in what we consider midlife. Well, midlife. What is midlife? It used to be around the Uranus opposition, which was around age 40 to 42. Midlife, more like 50 now, maybe even 60. It depends on, how well you've taken care of yourself, how much vitality you have and all that. But I definitely think of midlife as being later, right? We're living longer. For some of us, we're healthier, if we've been able to manage the environment that we've been in. And so midlife could really be considered closer to 50, but whatever that is, it's in this period when we start to feel a shift, right? There is a shift that starts happening inside of us. And for those who've been following me for a while, I've been doing a lot of work for women at midlife. And this is when this nodal shift happens. And we start to unpack what that experience is like. And the things that have been familiar to us stop feeling so juicy and exciting and even comfortable for us, which is kind of unsettling. And it makes us restless, makes us like, what's going on? Because the things that were so comfortable and known and familiar to me, where I felt like I knew what I was doing, it's like, oh, now I don't. And that is part of what happens at midlife for many people. In common culture, we call that a midlife crisis because we start going, oh no, things aren't working for me anymore. But I like to think of it as a midlife awakening, especially when you're on a spiritual path and you're really wanting to know yourself and wanting to know what is your soul purpose and why you're here and what is it that is giving you, that vitality that you crave. There's a lot of opportunity for us at midlife. And if you're in that place where you're feeling, kind of like, things are happening, but you're not quite sure where you are and you're not quite sure what your next steps are, but you're already on this path of awakening and you want to keep going and you'd like some guidance about that, I invite you to take my quiz, which is What's Your Midlife Awakening Archetype, which is specifically geared from women because that's generally who I attract and who I work with. And it will help you to get some understanding about where you are on that journey and what are going to be your best steps. So I'll put the link for that at the end of the video and it'll be down below. And I highly encourage you to get it. People have really liked getting it. So I'd love to hear from you about how it lands for you. Because this is really what is happening when we have these nodal shifts. So that I've been talking about in the life cycle. So let's get back to what's happening right now with the nodal shift that is going to be starting on May 14th and is going to go to July 25th. So the nodes have been in the 4037. So the 4037 is a full channel. It is the only channel that connects the will center, which is part of the heart center, and also the emotional solar plexus. They're over here mostly on the left-hand side of the body. And that channel is known as the channel of the bargain in traditional human design or the channel of administration in quantum human design. And it's where contracts live, agreements live, and particularly how they are in a tribal context because the 4037 is tribal energy. And it has to do with how we relate to each other inside of a tribe. What are our agreements? And how do we do business or commerce or trading? Because this is part of the commerce circuit or the community circuit in tribal circuitry. Now, the reason I wanted to especially bring this up is that this is what we consider in human design the background frequency of the cross of planning. Part of the lore of human design has to do with how we track the precession of the equinoxes, which is how we know we've been moving from the Piscean age into the Aquarian ages. From the precession of the equinoxes. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of depth about that, the technical stuff about that, but just to know we have this background frequency that emerges from the incarnation cross that is most alive during that time. And so, according to Rahu Rahu and the voice who he learned all of this from, right? This is a channeled system. The cross of planning became live at 1615, and then it's gonna move into the cross of the sleeping phoenix in 2027. So this is a big deal, right? Is that this background frequency is going to change. We've seen the development of huge modern cities, and we've also seen the development of democracy that came out of this. And then we've also seen things like healthcare or social security or just the governments wanting to provide more for the people. This has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger over the time of the cross of planning, and now we're moving out of it. And we've been moving out of it for a number of decades. It's not like, in February 2027, everything is going to change. It's not like that. These are incremental changes that happen over long periods of time. And so really our shift out of this into the cross of the sleeping phoenix has already been going on for decades. If not even a century. So they're big movements. So don't worry. Sometimes people get freaked out because they're like, oh no, 2027. You don't have to do that. There's not going to be this huge, massive change that's going to happen when you wake up in February of 2027. It's a gradual change. The nodes moved into the 4037 on December 23rd, 2025. So they've actually had a longer time in the 4037 than usual. Usually it's about 3 months, and this is a full 5 months. So we've really had a lot of energy. that has been moving through that 4037. And it's helping us to remember what the cross of planning was like, this major energy that we've been in. And so this is a great place for you to just to kind of feel into a little bit, like look at what's going on with the 4037, look at the different gates, see if they're lit up in your chart or not. I don't have either one of these lit up in my chart. So when the nodes are lighting this up, it's new energy for me. It also activates the will center and the emotional solar plexus, both of which are open on me. So this is a lot of energy that I get while this is going on. And so you can check that out for yourself and just kind of see how have you been relating to agreements. For example, you may have already been updating your agreements. You know, I was talking before about when we're at midlife, right? And the nodes start to shift, we often want to shift our agreements. So this is something that you might want to take a look at. Then on May 14th, the nodes are going to move into two gates. The south node is going to move into the 59, and the north node is going to move into the 55. And these are two primary gates that belong to the cross of the sleeping phoenix, which is what we are all collectively moving into. This is the new background frequency that we're moving into. And so this is going to give us, again, a kind of preview of what the energy of the cross of the sleeping phoenix is like. Again, we've already been in it, so it's not like it's a big change, but it is interesting that the south node is going to be in the 59. So the 59 is known as sexuality in traditional human design and sustainability in quantum human design. So this is kind of what we brought in with us, and it's what we're transmuting so that we can move forward into the north node energy, which is our destiny. And that is the 55 is known as abundance in traditional human design or faith in quantum human design. So let's unpack this a little bit because it's pretty interesting. If we think that our karmic energy was associated with sexuality, right? That makes sense. There's been a lot of emphasis on sexuality in our lives for a very long time. And there's also been a lot of distortion around sexuality. Under patriarchy, lots of violence against women was legal, condoned, just a part of how society works. And so we have had a lot of trouble around our relationship to our sexuality. We're also seeing the disclosure of some really, disturbing things that have been happening with men with their wives and how they've been abusing their wives and how this is all now being seen. And, there's a big network of people who've been doing this, right? And this can be really disturbing, right? And what I want to say here is this is fading away. Right? This is south node energy. It's what we're moving away from. And the more clear-eyed we can be about that, the distortions that we've had around our sexuality, around our sexual energy with each other, the way that it's been abused, right? The better off we're going to be able to move into the 59 being more about sustainability, right? How are we using this powerful life force energy of the sacral, which is the 59 is on the sacral. So it is that life force energy. And yes, sexuality is a part of that, but that's not all it is, right? Life force energy is the energy to engage with light. It's powerful. So we want to help to really kind of rehabilitate the 59 from this distorted sexuality into recognizing that we want to be sustainable and even regenerative around our life force energy. And this has to do with us as individuals, and it has to do with us as a part of a community, and has to do with us collectively. Now, that 59 is part of tribal circuitry. And so it does have to do with our relationships, absolutely. And so we want to look, how do we really create thriving communities, right, that are sustainable and regenerative? And I want to suggest that this is going to be a challenge to all of us in a way, right? As we're realizing that these really big structures that have been created under the cross of planning are not going to be particularly sustainable as we move into the cross of the sleeping phoenix. There's a lot of things that we've created that are now starting to crack and break apart by their own weight. And also increasingly we're seeing because of the corruption that has been built into them over over, really the centuries. And so a lot of this has to come apart and new things need to emerge. And as we do that, we can use that tribal energy of the 59 to create sustainable and regenerative communities with that powerful life force energy. Now we're moving towards the North Node, and the North Node is in the gate 55. So the gate 55 is on the emotional solar plexus. It is in the knowing circuit, so it's individual circuitry. It's known as abundance in traditional human design and faith in quantum human design. This is a really important gate for us as we move into that cross of the sleeping phoenix, because I like to think of this gate as the energy that continually reminds and reassures us that we have what we need when we need to have it. We have what we need when we need to have it. That gives us a sense of abundance, absolutely. But oftentimes we need faith to believe that, because we've been so conditioned into believing that there's not enough, that there's scarcity, that we have to fight for resources, right? We have to fight for the things that we want and that we need. We have been so conditioned into that. And yet it's really not true. I mean, there's more than enough food to feed everybody on the planet. There's more than enough water for everyone. It's just how we've been managing it and distributing it. And so as we move into this gate 55 as our destiny, we're leaning into this feeling of, there really is enough. I know for me personally, not enoughness has haunted me most of my life. So if you feel that way, whether it's the not enough, not good enough, that whole thing, just realize that is a cultural construct. It's not real. It doesn't have any real spiritual truth, any soul truth to it. And so when we can strip that away and really step into this internal sense of abundance, that I always have what I need when I need to have it. I do not need to hoard, right? Hoarding, people who are wanting to, be millionaires and billionaires and hoard and hoard and hoard, they have deep in their substructure a belief in scarcity, that there isn't enough. And there's a fear that is driving them to the really unfortunate behavior that a lot of them are participating in. Because truly, who needs billions, really, right? So what is that about? And what we want to do is be able to extract our psyche out of that really downward spiral energy that says there isn't enough and I need to fight to have enough for me. That's how we get stuck in survival, and our survival brain gets going, and then our fear is running our lives, and it's really not a very pretty picture. So while the nodes are in the 59 and the 55, it's not a channel, right? But while they're in those two gates, you get the opportunity to really feel into, wow, what is my relationship to sexuality? How has it been playing out in my life? How good do I feel about it, or not good do I feel about it? Or when do I feel great about it? And when do I feel like, right? Just lean into that and feel two gates that are part of the cross of the sleeping phoenix. Now, the other part that I want to just mention here, and I will do another video about this later, is that the channel that is emphasized in the cross of the sleeping phoenix is the 3420, which goes from the sacral center directly to the throat. It's the only channel that goes from the sacral to the throat. It's known as the channel of the manifesting generator, or the channel of charisma, or the channel of power, because it is an extremely powerful, it's the fastest, most powerful channel in the chart. Because like I said, it goes directly from the sacral, which is the most powerful engine in the chart, directly to the throat, which is our expression, our activation, our ability to manifest. Now, just a note here to say that Rahu, who was the founder of human design, really saw this as a detrimental change. He did not like the cross of the sleeping phoenix. He didn't like the individual circuitry. He really thought that we were going to end up like all in gated communities with guns and fighting over resources and so on. So it's a pretty dark vision that he had. I personally don't share that. He also had a pretty negative view of individual circuitry. He called it melancholic, I have a lot of individual circuitry. And when I learned that, I did a couple of classes of his, uh, trying to understand what it was why he was saying this about individual circuitry. And honestly, it just did not resonate for me. You know, and his idea is that because it's mutative and because it is that evolutionary energy, that there's always going to be melancholy with it. Now, the thing I do understand is that it can be hard when you feel like you don't fit in, because individual circuitry doesn't fit in. It's not designed to fit in. And so it can be harder in early life when we really do want to belong, right? A lot of times we do want to fit in. We want to find our place, right? What is my place in the collective? And that's not a negative thing, unless we're really shoving ourselves into boxes that are, many times too small or of the wrong character for who we really are. And I know, having had a lot of individual circuitry, that yeah, sometimes it has been really hard for me to fit into things. But the other part of it is it's incredible energy for change and for moving forward, and for to always have this sense of adventure, and of what's next, and how are you leaning into the next thing. And so for me, this is really interesting and powerful shift that we're moving into, because the 55 and the 3420 are all individual circuitry, and they're all in the knowing circuit. Now, the thing is, the knowing circuit is awesome, right? The knowing circuit is how we receive downloads from superconsciousness that are about how we're creating the new, about what's next, the new insights, the new epiphanies, the new breakthroughs, the new potentials. And so that's what's going to be highlighted during the time that we're in the cross of the sleeping phoenix. Now, we're going to have to make a big shift and for people who are maybe more tribal, it might be a harder shift. People who are more collective, it might be a harder shift. For people like me, we're like, yes, this is our time. And I don't see the individual circuitry as being the kind of individualism that I think Ra was talking about, kind of every person out for themselves, because this is also the age of Aquarius, and Aquarius is also about community. And so the challenge, if you will, for us as we move into the cross of the sleeping phoenix is, how do we honor the sovereignty of the individual? How do we foster the well-being and the thriving of the individual and also of the community simultaneously? How do we do that? And so that is really going to be our challenge as we move into the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And you're going to get a little taste of that as the nodes move, starting on May 14th. Pam Gregory actually has a great book about the nodes, called How to Co-Create Using the Special Language of the Universe. And there's a big section in there about the nodes and how important they are. There's exercises and stuff. I would highly recommend it if you want to go deeper into it, because I think she's really smart about it. I have used the exercises in that book in our Sovereign Sisterhood, and the women there have really gotten into it. Last year, we did a lot of work on the incarnation cross, and we were looking at the shift, the nodal shift that happens, like I said, at midlife. And last year, when we did the Sovereign Purpose and Power for Women at Midlife program, we really dove into that as well. So it's a juicy thing for you to check out if you want to know more about the nodes and why they're important and how you can make the most of them in your own personal chart. And you can use what she says when you find the nodes in your human design chart as well as in your astrology chart. As I said earlier, I really encourage you to take our quiz, What is Your Midlife Awakening Archetype, to help you to kind of just get a sense of where you're at midlife. Because I know it can be so easy to sort of feel lost when many things start changing. And I want you to know it's really not personal to you. I hope you're getting that. All right, my friends, many, many blessings. Much love.